All right, last video, we're going to talk about multiplying and essentially dividing. So we can multiply by distributing. So inside and outside stay separate. So if I say the cube root of 7 times 2, it's just 2 cube root of 7. However, this is inside the cube root and inside the cube root. So those will be together. So you will actually multiply that, which 49 times 7 is 343. Or you could also think about that as we know that this is cube root of 7. We know that that's 7 squared. 49 is 7 squared. So that's actually 3/7. So 7 to the third power. Well, those are going to cancel each other out to just leave us with 7. And this right here, if I could write it correctly, is our most simplest form. So again, you could just type what I'm highlighting right here in the calculator to get that simplified to 7. Or think about the fact that 49 is 7 squared, and then there's another 7 there, so that's 7 cubed, and the cube root of 7 cubed is just 7. In our next example, what if we have a binomial times a binomial? Well, previously we've been using the box. If you are a person that distributes instead, please continue to do that. My pen isn't wanting to act right, so I apologize. All right, so 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative square root of 3 is negative 2x square root of 3. So treat this as a negative 1. So multiply the outsides together, and then the inside of the radical is by itself. Same thing's going to happen here. So I get negative 2x radical 3. And then the last one, a negative times negative makes this positive. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. And then I add my like terms here in the middle. So negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. If you want to write that out in 2 steps instead of 1, it would look like this. I'm going to combine those like terms. For this as my final answer, 4x squared minus 4x square root of 3 plus 3. Okay. And the last thing that I want to talk about is dividing when there's a radical in the bottom. So the big idea here is that before calculators, it was not easy to divide when there was a square root in the denominator, or to divide by a square root was not easy. So we can use the conjugate to get rid of that square root. So recall that conjugate just means to switch the sign, the middle sign. So if I have 1 over 2 plus square root of 5, and I want to know what its conjugate is, it's going to be 2 minus square root of 5. And then whatever I do to the denominator, I must also do to the numerator to keep it even, or keep it equal. Remember, when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So 1 times this whole thing is just that whole thing. Okay, this one I need to either do the box over here, feel free, or I can do it this way. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative square root of 5 is negative 2 square root of 5. Positive square root of 5 times 2 is positive 2 square root of 5. And last times last, positive square root of 5 times negative square root of 5 is negative 5. Okay, so I will actually write that in 2 steps because some of you may need that. So 5 times 5 is 25. So let's put square root of 25. In our next step, the top stays, not changing a thing. The bottom, I have 4 here. Notice that these two middles cancel each other out. That should always happen when you use the conjugate. That's why we use the conjugate, so that those cancel each other out. So that's just 0. And then minus square root of 25, but remember the square root of 25 is just 5. So again, we have the top. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 1. So 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. And then negative square root of 5 divided by negative 1 is positive square root of 5. Now, this is a much simpler question, or answer rather, than what we started with. However, they are the same, okay? So how can I check that? Well, I can go to Desmos. It doesn't really matter which one. Okay, and then let's type our answer in. So negative 2 plus square root of 5. And we get some crazy decimal. I don't care what the decimal is. That's not the point. I get a crazy decimal. What happens if I put the original problem in? So 1 divided by 2 plus square root of 5. Well, that's not a 5. Notice those decimals are the same. So this is the way to check your answer, to make sure that your new answer is the same as what you started with, but it is a simpler version of what you started with, which is what we wanted. Okay, so finally, after all of these videos, this concludes 5-2.